Goldie Hawn's childhood in Tacoma Park, Maryland, was filled with music, but not of the joyful variety. Her father, a saxophonist, practiced late into the night, and her mother, Laura, pushed her hard to become disciplined and talented, often emphasizing that pretty girls were common but talented girls were rare. From the age of 3, Goldie was enrolled in ballet, a path chosen by her mother, not her. The ballet studio became Goldie's second home, a place of mirrors that reflected every flaw and imperfection in her movements. Her instructors were tough, often demanding perfection, and Goldie never felt good enough. The relentless scrutiny from the mirrors and her teachers shaped her early years, reinforcing the belief that no matter how hard she tried, she was always falling short. It was here in this harsh environment that her anxiety began to take root, a struggle for acceptance. As Goldie entered her teen years, the pressure from her ballet training grew heavier. Her body didn't match the ideal of a ballerina, too soft, too curvy, and the criticism from her instructors grew more intense. Despite the discipline she had learned, Goldie started doubting herself. Ballet, once a place of passion, became a battleground where she was never truly accepted. Her anxiety escalated. She struggled with feelings of inadequacy and insecurity, and the world around her seemed too big to navigate. In school, she wasn't the most popular or the smartest girl, which added to her sense of not fitting in. She was the girl who danced, but she wasn't seen for who she truly was. At 16, she made the difficult decision to pursue dance professionally, stepping into a world that continued to reject her for not conforming to its narrow standards. Rejected by the dance world. Goldie's move into professional dance was a rude awakening. She faced rejection at every turn as choreographers dismissed her for being too blonde or too bouncy. Her energy and body type didn't fit the rigid standards of the professional dance world. These rejections chipped away at her confidence. Goldie began to question whether all her efforts, her discipline, her years of training had been in vain. Was she truly just a pretty face with no real substance? Her doubts grew, and she began to feel that her mother's teachings about hard work and talent were not enough to break through the barriers of a superficial world. It was at this point that Goldie, still searching for her place, found herself dancing in clubs, a far cry from the high expectations she had set for herself. Go-go dancing, a humbling beginning. At 19, Goldie took a job as a go-go dancer in a nightclub where the platform was sticky with spilled beer and the atmosphere was anything but glamorous. She was dressed in short skirts and white boots, her body on display for an audience that was more interested in her looks than her talent. Goldie felt humiliated. The years of ballet training had taught her artistry, but here she was reduced to eye candy, a mere decoration. The constant reflection in the club's mirrors, where she saw herself as nothing more than a cliché, filled her with shame. However, as she continued to dance, something unexpected happened. She began to learn the power of commanding attention without apology. She started to understand how to use what others dismissed, her body, her smile, her energy, as tools for her own empowerment. A turning point, the Laugh-In audition. By 1967, Goldie was still struggling to make a name for herself. She worked odd jobs and performed in small theater productions, but she had yet to find anything substantial. It wasn't until she auditioned for Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, a new comedy variety show, that her life began to change. Although the show wasn't prestigious, it was work. and that was something Goldie had learned to never turn down. At the audition, she stood among polished dancers who seemed more confident and experienced. But when the music started, Goldie threw away the controlled movements of ballet and danced freely with the wild, uninhibited energy she'd learned from her time as a go-go dancer. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to be unapologetically herself, and the producers noticed her. They saw potential, not for perfection, but for connection, and they hired her. The hidden struggles, the gap between the public's perception of Goldie and her internal reality grew wider with each passing day. On the outside, she was the happy, giggling blonde who could do no wrong. But inside, she was terrified. She feared being found out, terrified that her true self, an intelligent, thoughtful woman, would be exposed as a fraud. The more she tried to show her intelligence, the more people laughed at her attempts. It felt like she was stuck in a role that didn't allow her to be anything more than the dumb blonde everyone expected her to be. The pressure of this public persona, combined with her rising anxiety, led Goldie to cry in private, her self-worth shattered by the constant need to maintain the smile that had made her famous. The turning point. Proving them wrong. Goldie's defining moment came during the Emmy Awards season in 1969. Laugh-In was nominated for several awards, but Goldie was overlooked. She wasn't seen as a performer, but rather as a decoration, part of the show's success, but not recognized for her own talents. Sitting in the audience that night, watching her colleagues receive awards while she sat unrecognized, something inside Goldie hardened. She made a decision that would change her life. She was going to prove them all wrong, not through complaints or demands for recognition, but by becoming undeniably talented. Goldie set her sights on acting, determined to show the world she was more than just a pretty face and a giggle. The breakthrough, cactus flower, the opportunity to prove herself came when Goldie auditioned for Cactus Flower, a romantic comedy. The casting directors expected little from her, seeing her as the same giggling blonde from Laugh-In. But this time Goldie was different. She wasn't trying to be the best dancer or the most perfect actress. She was focused on being real. She brought a natural, effortless charm to the role that the producers couldn't ignore. Goldie was cast, and her performance earned her critical acclaim. She won a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination for her work. Goldie had proven beyond a doubt that she was more than the dumb blonde stereotype the world had tried to impose on her. Beyond the Oscar, Goldie's lasting legacy. Goldie Hawn's journey didn't stop with an Oscar nomination. She went on to become a producer, a role that was nearly impossible for women in Hollywood at the time. She built an empire, creating films that showcased her comedic talents and strategic mind. She defied expectations by continuing to work well into her 40s and beyond, when many of her peers had faded from the spotlight. Goldie became a symbol of perseverance, proving that rejection and underestimation could be powerful motivators. Her greatest achievement, however, was not her career in movies. It was her ability to transform pain into power, to laugh in the face of adversity, and to build a life that was entirely her own,